The final frontier.
Dr. King, Dr. Martin Luther King, my leader, is walking toward me, not 10 feet away, with a beautiful smile on his face. He said, for the first time on television, we will be seen as we should be seen every day, as intelligent, quality, beautiful people who can sing, dance, but who can go into space.
Lately, we hear so much about D&I, right, and diversity and inclusion, and it really does feel like Star Trek was ahead of its time when it comes to that. And do you feel like now, with this next generation, it just continues? Because there were shows where it was like, oh, well, we have our one minority.
Right.
And now it's like, no, we're not just satisfied with one.
No, Star Trek has always been ahead of the curve, right? Seeing Nichelle Nichols on the bridge of the original Enterprise said to me, as a science fiction fan and a black kid, when the future comes, there's a place for you. There is a real hopeful aspect to Gene Roddenberry's vision.
I mean, Star Trek has been woke from day one. And woke is a good word. It's been given negative connotations, but woke just means you're awake and aware of everything that's going in the world around you. And that's what he's always been about, and that's what Star Trek has always been about. And so we're just carrying on that legacy.
There's a strange amnesia that often accompanies nostalgia. It allows people to remember tone but forget context, to recall aesthetic but ignore intention. Much of the contemporary backlash surrounding Starfleet Academy rests on precisely that kind of selective memory. The claim that Star Trek has gone woke depends upon the idea that there was once a politically neutral version of the franchise, a version concerned only with adventure, science fiction spectacle, and human drama unburdened by social commentary. Yet that version of Star Trek has never existed. From its inception in 1966, Star Trek the original series positioned itself not as escapism from social tension, but as confrontation with it. Gene Roddenberry did not construct a future that was insulated from political consciousness. He imagined a future shaped by it.
First Star Trek series, we treated such things as mixed races aboard the spaceship, and whether women could be in charge of anything and so on. And when we shocked the audience by saying yes to those questions. In the new series, with new characters and new attitudes, we have a chance to deal with still more important questions, and questions of the 80s and the 90s, such as the question of terrorists. The question of last year we touched on the question of drugs. Why do people take drugs? Because they're bad? Obviously, there's more to it than that. I want to touch on the problems of superstitions which rule the world and set people bombing each other. Great affection I have for Asians and what they do and the important part they play in the world, and I just could not have a group of Earth people without including that great, one half or more of the Earth continents, because it speaks to some basic human needs that there is a tomorrow. It's not all going to be over with a big flash and a bomb, that the human race is improving, that we have things to be proud of as humans. No, astronauts, ancient astronauts did not build the pyramids. Human beings built them because they're clever and they work hard. And Star Trek is about those things.
The bridge of the Enterprise was not merely a narrative setting, but a symbolic argument. In the midst of the Cold War and the Civil Rights Movement, American television audiences saw a black woman, a Japanese helmsman, and a Russian navigator operating as equals under a shared command structure. That image was not accidental. It was aspirational.
North America represented by the captain, Europe represented by a Scottish engineer, Asia represented by my character. But we also saw another part of the world that rarely gets represented in that kind of mix, Africa, represented by an African woman.
Nichelle, at that time, was one of the faces that we had to see.
The world got to see that, like, our women are strong. Yes, but they're also smart.
The presence of Uhura portrayed by Nichelle Nichols is perhaps the most frequently cited example of this ethos, but its significance is often underexplored. Nichols herself spoke about her intention to leave the series early in its run, only to be persuaded otherwise by Martin Luther King Jr., who told her that her visibility on the bridge of the Enterprise was not trivial entertainment, but a powerful image of Black dignity and possibility. When a civil rights leader identifies a science fiction television show as culturally transformative, one cannot reasonably argue that the show was apolitical. It was participating in the political imagination of its time.
And he said, if you leave, Nichelle, Gene Roddenberry has opened a door for the world to see us. If you leave, that door can be closed because, you see, your role is not a Black role. And it's not a female role. He can fill it with anything, including an alien. And at that moment, the world tilted for me. And I knew then, I didn't want to know it because I was going to go through some more turmoil for the rest of the week. But I knew that I was something else.
This foundational impulse did not diminish as the franchise expanded. Star Trek The Next Generation inherited Roddenberry's belief in progress and extended it into new ethical territory. Episodes confronted racism, corporate exploitation, and gender conformity not as abstract thought experiments, but as allegories rooted in contemporary anxieties. The transcoded episode The Outcast, for instance, aired in 1992 and addressed false conformity, identity suppression, and conversion therapy.
I am female. I was born that way. I have had those feelings, those longings, all of my life. It is not unnatural. I am not sick because I feel this way. I do not need to be helped. I do not need to be cured. What I need, and what all of those who are like me need, is your understanding.
The emotional devastation of Commander Riker's lost love was not subtle metaphor. It was a clear critique of social systems that erase individuals under the guise of correction. That episode did not emerge from a 2020s corporate diversity mandate. It emerged from a franchise already committed to interrogating structures of oppression. Even the so-called drug episode Symbiosis reveals this continuity. Captain Picard encounters a society dependent on a narcotic supplied by another civilization that profits from their addiction. The metaphor for systemic exploitation is unmistakable. Yet the episode avoids both moralistic condemnation and sentimental indulgence.
And Captain, we appreciate your gift of the coils.
Once our freighters are fixed, everything will be back to normal.
No. No. The coils stay here.
What about our freighters?
We want to repair them You'll have to learn to do it yourselves.
We can't. If you don't help us, our ships will soon be inoperable.
Quite possibly.
If you withhold those coils, you'll be disrupting the stability of both our planets.
And interfering with a trade agreement that has lasted for generations. What of your prime directive?
In this situation, the Prime Directive prohibits me from helping you.
That's absurd.
You did not think so when it worked in your favor.
Picard refuses to perpetuate their exploitative arrangement while declining to infantilize those caught within it. His response is grounded in awareness of power, of agency, of consequence. That balance, which contemporary discourse often flattens into caricature, exemplifies what the term woke once signified before it became polemical shorthand. An alertness to injustice without surrendering to performative outrage. The captains of Star Trek have never embodied ideological neutrality. They have embodied ethical engagement. The moral clarity of Kirk, the philosophical restraint of Picard, and later the spiritual and political complexity of Sisko were all shaped by the social climates of their eras.
I think people are inspired by the anti-sexism and anti-racism that was practiced on all the shows for the last 40 years. And that the hope of that possibility, given what's going on in the world, I hear it from people every day. The same thing that you hear from this Vegas cop, that when things go bad, I go back to the show or something. It's like you. Yeah. The story you opened with is really...
I am
you're the example.
You're the living incarnation, right?
I am.
What has changed in the present moment is not the franchise's orientation towards progressive ideals, but the language used to describe them. To argue that Starfleet Academy represents a radical departure from Star Trek's past is to overlook the consistent through line of social awareness that has defined the franchise for nearly 6 decades. It is understandable that audiences interpret contemporary installments through the lens of today's polarized discourse. Streaming platforms, algorithmic outrage, and cultural warframing intensify every representational decision. Yet the presence of Black characters, queer identities, or body diversity in Starfleet Academy does not constitute ideological corruption. It reflects a continuation of a long-standing commitment to imagining a future in which humanity has expanded its understanding of who belongs. The accusation that Star Trek has become woke implies a fall from purity. A more accurate description would be continuity of purpose. The franchise has always imagined a future shaped by inclusion, dialogue, and moral growth. The fact that these aspirations remain controversial says less about Star Trek than it does about the anxieties of the present.
The new series Star Trek Starfleet Academy premiered just last week, and it already has 2 outspoken critics, Deputy Chief of Staff Stephen Miller and the world's richest man, Elon Musk. They're complaining that the show has gone woke. As a Starfleet Academy member, please also allow me to respond. If you've never been asleep, you can't be woke. See, this was a show that was created with the idea that people from other planets would come and we would all find a way to exist together. This was Gene's idea. This was his dream.
Starfleet Academy does not represent a rupture. It represents continuity. Diversity in casting, engagement with identity, and exploration of generational legacy are not deviations from Trek's foundational principles. They are expressions of them. The captains were never neutral. They were aspirational figures shaped by social questions of their time. To pretend otherwise is to misunderstand the franchise at its core.
The ship is yours, Captain Arke.
Thank you, number 1. Lieutenant Standard, Thriss, Atlee. I read your files and look forward to getting to know you all. Lieutenant Rourke will be our academic liaison. She'll make sure we don't miss any teachable moments along the way. What's our ETA?
15 hours to Earth at maximum warp, Captain.
Good. Everybody back to work. Have a seat, please.
Aye, Captain.
If the accusations of modern wokeness falters under historical scrutiny, it collapses entirely when one considers the emotional and generational continuity between Deep Space Nine and Starfleet Academy. The appearance of Jake Sisko within the new series is not a nostalgic flourish inserted to placate longtime viewers. It is an acknowledgement of lineage, of history that continues to reverberate within the fictional universe and within the lives of those who created it.
This was right before the prophets told him that if he married Cassidy, he would know nothing but sorrow. He thought about what they said and married her anyway. He did what the prophets needed, but he did it his way. Those last few months with Cassidy and me, the best we ever had as a family. Prophets were wrong sometimes. As much as they taught him, he taught them too. By staying true to himself.
I don't think I could be Cass's emissary.
I get it.
Star Trek Deep Space Nine distinguished itself from earlier installments by centering on a black captain not as an exotic novelty, but as a fully realized human being. Benjamin Sisko was a widower, a father, and ultimately a religious figure burdened by destiny. The series permitted him complexity that transcended symbolism. He was neither sanitized nor caricatured. He navigated colonial occupation, interstellar war, and spiritual expectation while maintaining a deeply intimate relationship with his son. That father-son dynamic became one of the emotional anchors of the show. The decision to have Sisko ultimately ascend and leave Jake behind was contentious, not only narratively, but culturally. Avery Brooks reportedly expressed concern about reinforcing the stereotype of the absent black father, a trope with a long and damaging history in American media. Within the story, Sisko's departure was framed as cosmic necessity, not abandonment. Yet the emotional impact on Jake was palpable. The series did not trivialize that absence, it allowed it to linger. When Jake reappears in Starfleet Academy, even briefly, that history accompanies him. The scene does not operate merely as fan service. It reopens a wound, and in doing so, affirms that the past remains alive within the Federation's future. Sam's research into Sisko's life is not incidental world building, it is a meditation on legacy. It acknowledges that heroes leave traces, that decisions reverberate, and that generational memory shapes identity.
Everyone makes sacrifices. My father saved billions of people. Sometimes lose-lose is actually win-win.
But what if I can't do it? What if I'm not enough?
You are enough. My dad told me that so many times. I just wish I listened to him sooner.
For viewers who grew up with Deep Space Nine, the resonance is immediate. It is not political theatre. It is emotional continuity. This continuity extends beyond the fictional universe into the lived experiences of its actors. Cirroc Lofton's visible emotion on the seventh rule in response to the renewed connection with the franchise was not a performance crafted for publicity.
And again, I keep feeling like this episode was written by the fans. was at the end when it just said, "Thank you, Avery." That actually hit me harder than anything else, because I was like, that's exactly the point of this That's what this episode means. This episode is "Thank you, Avery." But Sirach, your acting, by the way, was A+. Nobody's surprised by it, but we saw who you are now through your acting, which is a very different person than who you were then. Obviously, that nugget of that person is still there. We all know you're the same guy you were. But now you're a very, mature, seasoned, caring, empathetic, and open-minded, thoughtful adult now.
Ryan, I appreciate you. And again, this came out of a place of love. During my conversations with Mr. Brooks, I remember him saying at one point, I asked him, I said, what are you thinking about when you're acting sometimes? What do you channel? And his answer was my father. Channel. That's where he gets his voice from. That's where he gets his looks from. That's where his fiber is. And this was an opportunity for me to channel my father, Mr. Avery Brooks, my on-screen father, and channel the love and energy he's put into me to become the man that I am. And so that is a reflection of, the guidance that he's given me all of these years. If it wasn't for all of you guys supporting this podcast, all the people that I met, so I just, really grateful that I got a chance to say what I wanted to say. And they worked closely with me to kind of filter the language and not be offensive. And it's also about the future generation and inspiring them to dream. And that's why I was grateful for that opportunity too. So I thank all of you guys, because I wouldn't have been here without you. I thank everybody.
The emotional weight Lofton carried during that reunion cannot be reduced to ideological signaling. It reflects the genuine attachment of artists to a narrative universe that shaped their careers and identities. To dismiss these moments as manifestations of woke Trek is to misread their significance. The preservation of Sisko's legacy and the honoring of Deep Space Nine's emotional architecture are acts of narrative fidelity. They affirm that Star Trek's future does not discard its past, but builds upon it.
Thank you for over 7 years of giving us beautiful, heartfelt messages, and for being patient with the rest of the world as we all waited for them to hear those words, because we all knew who you were, and now the rest of the world finally gets a glimpse into that as well. So thank you, Sirach, for always being just our superstar. And congratulations, and please know we're so freaking proud of you. So cool.
Star Trek does not promise perfection. It promises progress. It imagines a future where humanity has survived its worst instincts and chosen something better. That promise has always been controversial because it requires belief, not only in technology, but in moral evolution. We are living in a time where every cultural artifact is poured into ideological battle. It is tempting to reduce Star Trek to another front in that war, to measure its worth by whether it affirms or threatens our present allegiances. But the franchise has always asked us to think beyond our immediate conflicts. It asks what kind of people we might become centuries from now if we commit to dignity and dialogue. If the inclusion of marginalized voices feels political, it is because inclusion has always been political. If ethical awareness is labeled woke, it is because awareness disrupts comfort. Yet awareness is precisely what Star Trek has consistently championed. Its captains were not neutral observers. They were advocates for a more just future. Perhaps the most faithful way to engage with Star Trek today is not to ask whether it has changed, but whether we have. Whether our tolerance for moral aspiration has narrowed. Whether we mistake discomfort for decline. The Federation was never meant to mirror our present anxieties. It was meant to challenge them. And if that challenge feels unsettling, it may be because the work of progress remains unfinished, not in the fictional 24th century, but here. Star Trek has always been awake. The question is whether we are willing to be.